Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker, and today is actually a different kind of video than anything that I've ever done, just to kind of break up the season preview stuff a little bit. I get questions all the time, whether it be in the comment section or on Twitter or in streams or wherever, messages on Instagram, people asking me all the time about starting their own NBA YouTube channel or just a YouTube channel in general, whether it's related to sports or not. And so I decided to put this video together because I do actually have a lot of thoughts on this and advice and tips and tricks and things like that for you guys if this is something that you're interested in doing. Now, some of these things are specific to NBA YouTube and some of them are just about YouTube in general, but the important thing to keep in mind is that I can only speak on my own experiences here. These are things that I have gone through. These are things that I have noticed in my own personal journey through this whole YouTube thing. It's not something that necessarily maybe everybody agrees with, but again, I can only speak to my own personal experiences here. And the other thing to note is that this is not by any means some kind of step-by-step guide on how to be successful on YouTube, because that kind of thing doesn't exist. There are so many different variables to this kind of stuff, but there are different things that you can do, as well as some knowledge that I can share with you guys that will either help you or just at least make you a little bit more informed, help you understand YouTube and NBA YouTube specifically a little bit better. One other thing before we get started, I am going to do a Q&A at the end of this video. I asked you guys for some questions on the community page yesterday. I picked out a couple of those questions, so stick around for those at the end. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get started. This is one of, if not the most common questions that I get, and that is like, how do you make the videos? What kind of equipment do you need? Well, for me personally, at a very base level, you need a microphone, you need some kind of editing software to put the videos together, and then you need a computer to edit those videos with. And then if you're going to use Facecam like I do, you obviously need a camera as well, which I'll get to a little bit later. And the important thing in terms of equipment that I want to mention is that this stuff doesn't have to be wildly expensive. You can go and get a $50 Yeti Snowball microphone off of Amazon. You can download Audacity. You can look up tutorials about how to record good audio, and that will work perfectly fine for when you're starting off. You don't need to spend $200 on a microphone when you're just starting off. In terms of an editing software, I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which you can pay for monthly, so there's not a huge upfront cost, but in general, you don't really have to pay a ton for editing softwares either. And then the computer stuff, I mean, personally, I have a desktop that I edit with that I got for $350 off Amazon that came with a monitor and everything. And that's not to say you need to go out and buy that kind of computer. The only point here is that you don't need to go and spend $1,000+ on a computer to edit your videos with, and more than likely you or your parents have a computer laying around that will work just fine for editing videos, specifically for when you're just starting. So on the base level, those are the only three things that you really need, and again, they don't have to be wildly expensive. Now, the other thing that I mentioned in the beginning was a camera if you're going to do Facecam like obviously I do, and this is really funny because I've had people message me asking, what kind of camera do you use, things like that, because obviously I've been doing Facecam in my videos for a while now. Well, if you've been watching my videos, I would say the camera quality is good. Obviously, you have to make sure that you have good lighting, but in terms of equipment specifically, I use my iPhone. I have an iPhone 8, the camera works perfectly fine, and then I have a $10 tripod off Amazon that works for my phone. Ever since I've been doing Facecam videos, I've just been using my iPhone to record them with. So you don't need to go out and spend $3,000 on a camera. If you have an iPhone, it actually takes really good video. Just make sure you have space on your phone so that you can actually take, a 10 to 15 to 20 minute video and record it at the same time if you want to use Facecam. Right alongside the equipment thing, this is also probably one of, if not the most common questions that I get, whether it be comment section, Twitter, Instagram messages, whatever. And that is, what kind of videos should I make? What kind of videos are successful typically? And people have success with all different kinds of stuff. Like Andy Hoops does really good historic stuff. Some people do lists, some people do 2K stuff and rebuilds. Other people look at current events and do kind of like news shows. A lot of people do a lot of mixes of different things, and people have success with all different kinds of videos. So there's no specific like, hey, you should look into doing what ifs, or you should look into doing this. Mostly my advice here would be do videos that you enjoy. Make videos that you enjoy making and that you have a passion for. If you love NBA history and you want to talk about that stuff, then go for it. If you just want to talk about the current stuff that's happening in the NBA and do like a news style show, then make those kinds of videos, because the most important thing is, like, let's just say, for example, it does take off, right? Like you start making videos, people are interested, you start getting subscribers, and eventually you want to make it like a long-term thing, make it a career of sorts. Well, if you're not making videos that you're enjoying, enjoying, then eventually you're gonna be upset when you have to make these videos, because if it takes off, people are going to expect more of that kind of video as you continue to progress. So if you start off with something that is saying, oh, I'm gonna get all these views because this video really, these kinds of videos do really well, but you're not enjoying what you're making, then eventually you're going to run into a problem. So that would be my advice in terms of what kind of videos you should make. Find out what you enjoy, find out what you're interested in, find a style that you like, and then roll with that. And then if it doesn't work out, you don't feel like you're getting traction, then maybe make some adjustments to the kinds of videos that you're making, but with the understanding that if you're not enjoying it as much, people are going to expect you to make those kinds of videos if it does actually go well. Again, this is a really common one. A lot of you actually asked this in the Q&A section, but I was already going to cover it anyway. And this is kind of a YouTube in general thing. Like, it's really difficult to get initial traction on YouTube for whatever reason. And when I find out how to utilize the YouTube algorithm to get crazy views on YouTube and really take off to a massive extent, then I'll let you know, because nobody really knows. Like, there are little things that you kind of learn about your specific market, things that can go well for you specifically and on your channel that people that watch you really enjoy. But in terms of starting from scratch, there's no 100% guaranteed thing to make work. Now, before I get into some kind of like minor tips and tricks, here's what I would say about getting, your YouTube channel in general, or NBA YouTube channel specifically, off the ground. If it's something that you care about, right? Like if it's something you're passionate about, it's something you really want to pursue seriously, understand that it's going to require patience and it's going to require time, and you have to continue to put out videos if it's going to work out, and to whatever extent you hope that it will. Like, overnight successes on this platform absolutely do happen, but they're a lot more rare than people think that they are. Most of the time, it takes a long time to get any kind of following, and then you build on that, and you build on that with consistency and with good quality content. For me personally, it took over 50 videos just to get to 100 subscribers. And the best piece of advice I can give you is, like, again, if this is something that you really want to pursue, the only way it's going to happen is if you continue to put out videos. Like, if you quit and you stop putting out videos, it's definitely not going to happen, right? So just continue to put out good content, put out stuff that you enjoy, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, well, then at least you tried, you gave it everything you could, and it just wasn't meant to be for whatever reason. Now, in terms of specific tips and tricks, there are a couple of things that you can do. Now, first is I would definitely try and promote it to friends and family, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter. Don't spam everybody every other hour with all of your videos and stuff, but when you put one out, let people know, try and get some initial traction. But the important thing there is to make sure that it's a good video, right? Like, it's something that you feel comfortable sharing with your friends and family, and that you think that they're going to enjoy and recommend to other people. Because if it's not any good, they're not going to recommend it to anybody, and then when anybody watches it, they're not going to recommend it to anybody else. So make sure that it's good quality content first, obviously, and then try and get your friends and family into it. That's what I did initially, trying to get some traction, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or whatever, trying to get just some grassroots stuff going there, get a couple of views, and then try and build off of it from there. The only other piece of advice I can give here in terms of the NBA specifically is, when I was first starting, I definitely made a point to try and be really quick about putting out a video on some kind of big event when it first happened. If there was a big trade, if there was a big signing, if there was anything that just kind of came out of nowhere that I knew was going to be a big deal on YouTube, and NBA YouTube specifically, I tried to be one of the first people out there, because I knew that if I had an opinion on this and I wanted people to know about it, it was only going to get to people if I got one out before some of these bigger content creators. Now, I would caution against this just being like your overall strategy, because one, it's not guaranteed to work, obviously. Two, it only really works some of the time. And three, you got to make sure that it's a good video, or again, it doesn't matter. So in general, in terms of trying to get your channel, whether it be NBA or otherwise, off the ground, make sure you're putting out good stuff, promote it to friends and family, be consistent with it, and understand that it's going to take time. It's not going to be something for most people where you're going to put out one video that gets 500,000 views and then suddenly you're rolling. So just keep that in mind when you're going into it. But I would still encourage you to try it, like I said, and just try your best and see if it works out or not. Okay, now here is definitely a big one, and people ask me this all the time because maybe they're starting to get a little bit of traction on YouTube. Maybe they've got some subscribers up, 1,000, 2,000 subscribers, and they're having issues with their use of NBA footage. And this is a loaded question in the NBA YouTube community. And the short answer to this is how do I use NBA footage? The short answer to that question is you can't. The NBA has the rights to their broadcast footage, to their recordings of the games that you're watching, and we are not allowed to use that, certainly not in monetary demonetize videos, but really in videos in general, because that is their content. Now, there are some things that supposedly would help us get around that. There's the claim of fair use and copyright, use of copyrighted material that should work if you're making a transformative video. And in my opinion, most people on YouTube do make transformative videos, so they should be able to use that NBA footage. But regardless, that's not the case. So basically, here are your two options. If you really want to use NBA footage, you can do one of two things. One, you can partner with a program called NBA Playmakers. I would highly caution against this. I've had multiple interactions with them via email as well as over the phone, and have never had a good experience. It just wasn't something that I felt right. They're going to ask for a revenue split of whatever you're making off the videos in exchange for use of NBA footage. They'll still copyright your videos, but then you will at least, have the right to use it, and then the revenue split will work out in a certain way. The revenue split isn't going to be anywhere from 10 to 50% of what you're making off of your videos. Again, I would highly caution against that. If you want to look into it, that's fine, but I've never really spoken to anybody that's currently affiliated with them or has been affiliated with them or partnered with them in the past that has had a good experience. But if you want to use footage, that's pretty much your only option, because number two would be figure out a way to present your content that doesn't involve NBA footage. For me, obviously, I used it initially. I was tired of all the copyright stuff because my videos were getting taken down, they were getting demonetized, I was getting in trouble with YouTube, and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore, because it's going to be an issue for you at some point. You could get away with it for months, and then one day you get 100 copyright claims, and it's a huge deal for you and for your channel. So what I would recommend is, again, either Playmakers, which I would highly caution against, or figure out a way to present your content in a way that does not use NBA footage. For me, that meant face cam. For other people, that means just using pictures. For other people, that means using workout videos. Whatever you want to do, I just feel personally a lot more comfortable knowing that the content that I'm putting out is 100% my own. It's just me, it's graphics, it's all that stuff, and I'm not relying on any other content to put together my stuff. But again, those are your two options. NBA footage, the use of it, copyright claims, all that stuff is going to be an issue. So those are really where you're going to have to go with either of those things. Okay, this is another really big one. There are some relatively heavy topics in this. And yes, absolutely, NBA YouTube can be a full-time thing. I'm not going to get into my own specific finances and tell you guys how much money I make and things like that. But I will tell you that eventually, yes, it can be a full-time thing. But there are some important things to consider that make it more difficult than maybe you would think at first. The first one is it takes a large volume and a large quantity of views to really start to make good money on YouTube, an amount of money that you can live off of on a monthly basis. The second part is obviously it's not consistent because views vary, how much money you're making per 1,000 views varies, all that stuff. And then the third thing is, in the US at least, it's obviously a lot different than your typical 9 to 5. It's money that you're making yourself. It's self-employment income without getting into it too much and getting really boring into like taxes and things like that. In the US, you're paying over 30% back on what you're making. So for every $100 that you're making from YouTube, you have to pay back over $30 per 100 because that's just the self-employment tax rate in the US. And obviously you don't have other benefits like healthcare and retirement, things like that. You get from some other 9 to 5s. Again, that's specifically in the US. So yes, you can possibly make it a full-time thing, and it's definitely doable, but it's going to take a relatively large number of subscribers with consistent viewership and with the understanding that the amount of money that you're actually going to be bringing home is really not going to be nearly as much once you account for, like I said, that 30% plus tax rate. And then if you're partnering with NBA Playmakers, then that's a split, and suddenly you're taking home less than half the money that you're actually generating through your videos. So all those things are important things to consider. One other small piece of advice is that if this does work out, right, like if you start a YouTube channel and things kind of take off, just get a CPA to handle all the tax stuff, let them take care of it, pay them to deal with your taxes, find a good CPA, and it just makes life so much easier. That's what I do. But again, keep in mind that the people that you're watching are not bringing home nearly as much money as you think that they are, even if they're getting a really large amount of views in the YouTube space, specifically with, possibly having to be partnered with Playmakers, and then, like I said, the tax stuff as well. It's doable, but it's going to take longer than you're probably thinking it will. And now really quickly, before we get into the Q&A section, I feel like I'm being a little bit pessimistic about this, and I want to make a point at the end of this video to say that I really enjoy doing all this YouTube stuff, and there are certainly some complaints that I have, but that comes with every job, right? Like there are pros and cons to every situation, but I'm in a great situation where I am. I really enjoy it. I wanted to kind of explain to you guys some of the things that maybe you haven't really ever been able to get a straight answer about, whether it be YouTube or NBA YouTube specifically, whatever. And then, like I said, just give you guys some advice on maybe how to get your channel started, some equipment and things like that. But let's go ahead and get into the Q&A section. And a lot of the questions that were asked, actually, I was already planning on talking about. But the first one is from Blazer, and he says, how difficult is it balancing your personal life and YouTube. And really, it's not about like the time that it takes to put into the videos, right? That's not a huge issue for me, specifically, at least. Like, time management is not a big issue. The other part is just kind of like the mental aspect, because you're going to have people commenting on your videos. You're going to have people on Twitter saying, especially if you're going to be in such an opinionated, niche category like the NBA or like sports analysis in general, people are going to come at you with, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, this, that, and the other thing. And I think that's the kind of the most difficult thing to balance, along with just kind of the varied financial amounts that you're making, is understanding that you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your opinions out there, and people are going to disagree with you on things, but to just stay strong in what you think and what you're putting out there, and just understand that disagreements are going to happen, and the best way to approach it is just as a conversation and as a discussion, and just trying to have a fun discussion with someone about differing opinions rather than just completely crushing your opinion. So I think that's probably the most difficult thing in terms of balancing like personal life, quote unquote, and YouTube. Other than that, it's really not wildly difficult. It's really not that difficult. And then the other one is from Movie Ball, and he says, what's the most challenging thing about making your videos? For me, specifically this time of year, it's just the idea stuff. Like during the season, especially the last couple of years, like there's so much stuff to talk about with the NBA on a daily basis. But when you have to kind of deal with how do I come up with videos for the like 2 months between free agency and the summer league finishing up to the actual start of the season, that's definitely a challenge, because you want to make sure it's still good stuff, right? But you also want to make sure that people have content to watch and you're staying consistent with it. For me, obviously doing the season previews is a great way to do that, to get content for you guys in a part of the year that there's just not a ton happening. But for me, that would definitely be the most challenging part. And yeah, there you have it. That's going to be the end of today's video. I just kind of wanted to do this again, just to do something different, to provide you guys some knowledge and just share basically what I've learned to this point on YouTube. And I hope it helps you guys. If you want a part 2, I have a ton of stuff that I didn't even put into this that I can definitely share with you guys. If you find this helpful and you want more, I can absolutely do that. Just let me know down in the comment section below. But once again, my name is Tucker. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.